On the 27th of May, 2026, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius arrived in Ottawa and attended CANSEC, the largest annual defense and security exhibition in Canada, organized by the Canadian Association of Defense and Security Industries. Standing alongside Canada's Defense Minister David McGuinty, he presented an offer unlike anything previously proposed by a German defense minister to a Canadian audience. The package included 4 submarines for the Royal Canadian Navy, scheduled for delivery by 2036. It also outlined an $86 billion increase to Canada's gross domestic product, 654,695 job years of employment throughout the duration of the project, and $160 billion in total economic activity. The proposal went far beyond submarine construction. It included 2 submarine maintenance centers, one located on each Canadian coast. It also called for the creation of a manufacturing facility in Canada dedicated to heavy torpedoes and anti-torpedo systems. Plans were presented for a testing center and potentially a production site for hypersonic missiles on Canadian territory. Submarine propulsion technology and battery systems would also be produced in Canada. 4 signed teaming agreements would integrate Canadian Indigenous development organizations directly into the industrial framework of the project. The offer further included German investment in the Port of Churchill, with the goal of transforming it into a major export gateway for liquefied natural gas and critical minerals. Another element involved a carbon capture project in Alberta, developed through a joint venture with the provincial government using TKMS technology. Yet the most remarkable aspect of the entire proposal came from Germany and Norway. Both countries are customers of the TKMS Type 212CD submarine, a design already under production. Each nation offered to surrender 1 submarine from its own procurement schedule so that Canada could move ahead in the production line. This arrangement would allow Canada to receive submarines sooner than would otherwise be possible through the normal manufacturing timetable. The proposal was not presented as a conventional defense contract. Germany and Norway framed Canada's future submarine capability as an issue tied directly to their own national interests, to NATO cooperation, to Arctic security, and to alliance solidarity during a period of growing strategic pressure, unlike anything experienced since the Cold War. The offer also highlighted the Type 212CD submarine itself and emphasized that its design characteristics align closely with the environments Canada must monitor and defend. Attention was also directed toward Norway's role in the partnership, the competing proposal submitted by Hanwha Ocean of South Korea, the expected timeline for Ottawa's decision, and the broader implications for Canadian sovereignty in the Arctic over the coming 50 years. At the center of the competition remains the issue of delivery schedules. For years, Canada's defense planning has identified 2035 as the target date for the first replacement submarine to enter service. The Royal Canadian Navy currently operates 4 Victoria-class submarines. These vessels were acquired second-hand from the Royal Navy beginning in 1998 and are now approaching the limits of their operational lifespan. The 2035 objective is not simply an administrative benchmark. It reflects a strategic requirement. Beyond the middle of the 2030s, Canada's underwater defense capability in the Atlantic, Pacific, and especially the Arctic faces increasing pressure at the same time that security challenges across all 3 regions continue to intensify. South Korea's Hanwha Ocean has built much of its campaign around this timeline. The company has offered the KSS-3 Batch 2 submarine and, working together with Hyundai Heavy Industries, has publicly stated that 4 submarines could be delivered to Canada before 2035, if an agreement is signed during 2026. To strengthen its case, Hanwha recently sent one of its KSS-3 submarines to Victoria, British Columbia. Canadian Navy personnel were invited aboard for a familiarization voyage, demonstrating confidence in the platform through direct experience rather than promotional material. Until recently, Germany's TKMS had adopted a more cautious delivery schedule. Earlier presentations made to the Carney government in Kiel projected the first submarine arriving in 2034 and the second in 2037. That timeline left the remaining vessels extending well into the later years of the 2030s, creating a weakness in the German bid that Hanwha had repeatedly highlighted. Then, during Pistorius' visit to Ottawa, the schedule changed. TKMS Chief Executive Officer Oliver Burkhard announced a new sequence that military planners could immediately place on their calendars. 2032, 2033, 2035, 2036, 4 submarines delivered across a 4-year period. Instead of receiving 1 vessel in 2034 and another in 2037 with the remaining boats arriving even later, Canada would receive all 4 within a much tighter timeframe. The method proposed to achieve this acceleration is what gives the offer broader strategic significance. Germany and Norway are both currently purchasing the Type 212CD submarine for their own naval forces, with production already underway at TKMS facilities in Kiel and Wismar. Under the proposal, each country would surrender 1 submarine slot from its existing order and transfer that position to Canada. Germany would postpone one of its own deliveries, Norway would do the same. Under the revised proposal, Canada would move ahead within a production schedule that is already active and already delivering operational submarines. Oliver Burkhardt explained the significance of that arrangement in straightforward terms. Canada would enter a tested, NATO-compatible submarine program that is currently being built and specifically designed for Arctic missions as well as worldwide deployments. This is not a concept awaiting development. These submarines are already under construction for 2 allied nations. Canada is being offered a position within that existing manufacturing stream rather than waiting for an entirely new production process to begin. That difference is critical. A system already in production carries a different level of technical risk than a project that still needs to be launched. Between the 2 competing proposals, that distinction represents the most important technical factor. To understand the offer fully, it is necessary to examine the Type 212CD itself. The submarine was created for precisely the operational conditions that Canada's future underwater fleet must be capable of handling. The Type 212CD is a joint German-Norwegian design. The contract was signed in July of 2021 with a combined value of approximately $5.5 billion for both countries. Construction began at TKMS facilities in September of 2023. The vessel has a surface displacement of roughly 2,500 tons and a submerged displacement of approximately 2,800 tons. Its length measures 73 meter, while the beam reaches 10 meter. Power is generated through 2 MTU 4000 series diesel generators working together with lithium-ion battery systems. These are the same technologies for which E3 Lithium in Alberta and Frontier Lithium in Ontario are developing Canadian supply networks. The submarine also employs a 4th-generation proton exchange membrane, fuel cell air-independent propulsion system. This technology allows the vessel to remain underwater for long periods without operating its diesel engines. The air-independent propulsion endurance reaches up to 41 days beneath the surface without the need for frequent snorkeling. 41 days underwater means operating without repeatedly exposing a mast to radar detection. In Arctic regions, where ice conditions can restrict surfacing and where NATO analysts now assess Russian submarine activity at levels comparable to the Cold War, that capability carries major operational importance. The figure of 41 days is more than a technical statistic. It represents the difference between a submarine capable of sustained operations in the high north and one that is not. The combat management system for the Type 212CD was developed by the KTA Naval Systems Consortium. The consortium brings together TKMS, Atlas Electronic, and Norway's Kongsberg. Kongsberg is also known for producing the Naval Strike Missile, the Joint Strike Missile, the NASAMS air defense system that Canada provided to Ukraine, and Norway's Arctic satellite surveillance network. The submarine is equipped with 6 533mm torpedo tubes. These launchers can deploy heavyweight torpedoes, anti-ship missiles, and unmanned underwater vehicles. Its hull incorporates a low observable design intended to reduce both acoustic and sensor signatures. Should Canada select the platform and join Germany and Norway in procurement, the combined fleet of the 3 countries would reach 24 Type 212CD submarines. That would make it the largest conventional submarine force anywhere in the world. The significance of that number extends beyond manufacturing efficiency. It also affects interoperability. According to reporting cited by CBC regarding the shared fleet concept, spare parts, supplies, training systems, and even crews could be interchangeable among participating nations. Norway's defense leadership emphasized the same point. Rear Admiral Rune Gudfinsen stated that such a fleet structure would be both highly cost-effective and exceptionally powerful. The industrial package attached to Germany's submarine proposal is unlike anything previously seen in Canadian defense procurement. Its scope extends well beyond submarine construction. The initiative is intended to function both as a military acquisition project and as a broad industrial development program spanning 6 separate sectors. Within the naval domain, the proposal includes 2 submarine maintenance centers. One would be established on the Pacific coast, the other would be located on the Atlantic coast. Both facilities would be based on the design of TKMS's existing maintenance complex in Norway and staffed by Canadian personnel trained to the same standards as Norwegian submarine technicians. The proposal also includes manufacturing operations in Canada for the Sea Spider anti-torpedo torpedo defense system. TKMS is already committed to joint development with Canadian industry, with major components planned for design and production within Canada. Submarine propulsion equipment and battery systems would also be manufactured domestically. This would place Canadian workers directly into one of the most technologically advanced areas of submarine production. Another element involves the possible creation of a Canadian facility dedicated to testing and potentially manufacturing hypersonic missiles. Canada currently lacks such a capability. Its introduction would mark a major expansion of the country's independent defense industrial capacity. The package does not stop with naval programs. It also reaches into infrastructure, energy development, and environmental technologies that connect directly to several major policy priorities in Canada. At present, the German government has committed to investing in the Port of Churchill in Manitoba. The objective is to develop the port into a major export center focused specifically on liquefied natural gas and critical minerals. Germany's proposed investment in the Port of Churchill directly mirrors Prime Minister Carney's announcement in Berlin during August of 2025 that Canada would move forward with developing Churchill as an LNG export gateway serving European customers. Under this approach, Germany would not simply purchase Canadian resources through a submarine agreement. It would also participate financially in building the infrastructure required for Canada to deliver those resources to European markets. Another component of the proposal involves cooperation with Alberta on a carbon capture project utilizing TKMS technology. This aspect links German industrial capabilities with Alberta's energy transition objectives. The package also includes 4 signed teaming agreements with Indigenous development organizations. These arrangements place First Nations participation within the industrial framework from the outset, rather than treating consultation as a procedural requirement added later. The President and Chief Executive of TKMS Canada described the proposal as a nation-building initiative. Viewed in its entirety, the industrial package aligns with that description. This is not merely a submarine acquisition accompanied by economic offsets. It is presented as a comprehensive strategic partnership between 2 nations that have spent the previous year strengthening cooperation through energy agreements, critical minerals partnerships, the August 2025 Berlin Joint Declaration of Intent, the expanded Canada-Germany bilateral relationship under the G7 framework, and the earlier TKMS agreement with E3 Lithium in Alberta, focused on lithium battery supply chain development. At the same time, Ottawa faces a difficult decision because the competing proposal from Hanwha Ocean also carries significant advantages. South Korea's offer is centered on the KSS-3 Batch 2 submarine, a platform already operating with the Republic of Korea Navy. Hanwha has pledged to provide 4 submarines before 2035. That schedule places delivery 1 year ahead of Germany's package, which concludes in 2036. Supporters of the South Korean proposal argue that retiring Canada's aging Victoria-class fleet earlier could save approximately $1 billion in maintenance and support expenses. That figure transforms the timeline debate into more than a discussion about military capability. It also becomes a financial consideration. Hanwha has brought a KSS-3 submarine to Victoria, British Columbia, allowing Canadian naval officers to inspect and evaluate the vessel firsthand. TKMS responded primarily through its shipyard visit in Kiel, attended by Prime Minister Carney. The South Korean proposal also includes an industrial benefits package. Although the details have not been publicly disclosed with the same level of specificity as Germany's offer, sources indicate it contains commitments involving Canadian shipbuilding participation and industrial investment. The federal government has repeatedly stated that industrial and technological benefits will play a central role in the evaluation process. Domestic economic value, delivery schedules, and technical performance remain key criteria. In terms of publicly available details, Germany's proposal is broader in scope. Its package includes torpedo production facilities, hypersonic missile infrastructure, lithium battery manufacturing, maintenance centers on both coasts, investment in the Port of Churchill, and carbon capture cooperation in Alberta. However, announced plans are not the same as completed projects. Canada's past experience with ambitious defense industrial benefit programs includes cases where final results did not fully reflect commitments made at the signing stage. A decision is expected before the end of June of 2026 and ahead of the NATO summit in The Hague. Any new submarine commitment by Canada would carry political importance within the context of NATO, particularly as Canada advances toward the alliance target of 5% of GDP devoted to defense spending and continues repositioning itself as a more active NATO partner. Boris Pistorius has remained the most visible political advocate for Germany's proposal. During discussions surrounding CANSEC, he described the choice as extending beyond a commercial transaction. He argued that economic benefits, geopolitical considerations, shared NATO interests, and the broader relationship between Europe and Canada all point toward the same conclusion. Pistorius stated that Germany is absolutely convinced the proposal serves the interests of both countries. That perspective closely aligns with the strategic framework that has defined Canada's international direction over the past year. Examples include Canada's seat within the European political community in Yerevan, participation in the SAFE program, the SFNG agreement, critical minerals partnerships involving Germany, Italy, Norway, Greenland, and the United Kingdom, as well as the Defense Industrial Strategy's stated objective of integrating Canada into European defense supply chains, rather than positioning it solely as a purchaser of American military equipment. Should Ottawa select the German-Norwegian option, the decision would place a lasting physical foundation beneath that broader geopolitical alignment. The result would be a shared submarine fleet, a common maintenance network, an integrated supply chain, a unified operational doctrine, all of it extending across the next 50 years beneath waters that both sides regard as the defining strategic frontier of the 21st century. The submarines represent the hardware. The Alliance provides the software. If you found this analysis valuable, follow for more in-depth coverage of military, geopolitical, and strategic developments shaping the future of global security. Please leave your thoughts about this content in the comments below. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.